As the golden lights of the gala shimmered against the backdrop of the city skyline, Emma stood at the edge of the crowd, her heart beating in rhythm with the pulsating music. She adjusted her red dress, one of the few things that felt like a departure from her otherwise ordinary life. The gala was a bridge between her monotonous days of paperwork and the allure of dreams unfulfilled. Yet here she was, an uninvited intruder to a world filled with elegance, luxury, and whispers of danger. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. As she sipped her wine, Emma caught snippets of conversations wrapped in intrigue. "Did you hear about Luca?" One woman hissed, her brow furrowed. "He's not someone you want to cross." The name sent a shiver down Emma's spine, though she didn't know why. There was something about the way the guests spoke in hushed tones, how they cast wary glances toward the towering figure standing just a few feet away. Luca was a force of nature, tall, with an air of unapproachable confidence that made people both admire and fear him. His dark hair was slicked back, and the glint of his tailored suit caught the candlelight, making him look like a king among mere mortals. She could see the way the crowd parted around him, as though they were waves and he was the unwavering rock in the ocean. He captivated everyone, yet a palpable tension followed him like a shadow, a warning simmering beneath the surface. Emma shook her head, trying to break the spell he had cast over her. A man like that wouldn't notice a woman like her, someone who was barely living her life, merely going through the motions. Yet she couldn't help herself. Her curiosity was piqued. She found herself inching closer, the music and laughter fading into the background as she focused solely on him. There was a moment, an electric moment, when their eyes met. Time froze, and the air thickened with unspoken words. Emma felt a rush of heat, her cheeks flushing as she realized how ridiculous she must look, standing there like a deer caught in headlights. But in that instant, it was as if Luca saw right through her facade, unveiling the depths of her otherwise mundane existence. "What are you doing here?" a voice beside her snapped, dragging her back to reality. It was Jenna, her boss's assistant, who worked hard to climb the corporate ladder, but never quite reached the top. "You shouldn't be this close. People like him are dangerous." Her warning was laced with concern, but Emma could hardly focus. She merely nodded, her eyes still glued to Luca. His presence was magnetic, drawing her in despite the warnings that echoed in her mind. As she stood there, she felt a rush of emotions she hadn't experienced in years. Alive, excited, and undeniably curious about the man who commanded such fear and respect. She wanted to understand the layers beneath his stoic exterior. Who was he really when the lights dimmed and the music stopped? The crowd around Luca started to dissipate, creating a small pocket of space that felt like an invitation. Emma hesitated, her heart hammering as she weighed her options. Should she retreat to the safety of the bar or risk stepping into the unknown? Her mundane life had been marked by predictability, and suddenly the promise of something extraordinary gleamed like an unpolished gem. A burst of laughter erupted from a nearby group, but the noise only served to heighten her awareness of the growing silence between her and Luca. He turned slightly, and for an instant his gaze drifted toward her again, igniting a fire that warmed her from within. Emma took a deep breath, summoning courage from somewhere deep inside. With each step toward him, the whispers of warnings faded, replaced by an insatiable curiosity. As she approached, Luca's lips curled into a faint, enigmatic smile that twisted her insides. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice smooth like silk. The weight of his gaze was both intimidating and thrilling. "Actually, I was curious about the man who is rumored to run this city," Emma managed, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her stomach. It took every ounce of her resolve not to shy away from his intensity. His expression shifted subtly, intrigue flickering in his dark eyes. "Rumors can be misleading," he replied lightly, though the tension in his voice hinted at the truth hiding beneath the surface. "I suppose," she said, feeling a spark of excitement, "but I've never been one to shy away from the truth. There was a moment of silence, the world around them blurring into a distant hum. Emma's heart raced as she realized that she had crossed an invisible line. Here she was, a woman who had always played it safe, daring to confront a man whose very name sent shivers down spines. Would he brush her off? Or was there a hint of interest behind that cool demeanor? "Truth can be a double-edged sword," he replied, his gaze piercing. "You might find more than you bargained for." Before she could respond, a rough voice cut through the atmosphere, pulling her attention away. "Luca, we need to talk," a man interrupted, casting a wary glance at her. Emma's heart sank slightly, sensing the weight of the moment slipping through her fingers. She turned back to Luca, who had already shifted his focus, the mask of the mafia boss reasserting itself. "Excuse me," he said, his voice lacking the warmth it carried moments before. The glamour of the gala faded, replaced by a harsh reminder of the reality that surrounded him. As he walked away, Emma felt a mix of emotions swirling within her: disappointment, intrigue, and an undeniable spark of attraction. She glanced around, now more aware of the hushed conversations and fearful glances that marked the atmosphere. There was so much more to Luca than met the eye, and the mystery beckoned her. And night felt charged with possibilities, her mundane life suddenly on the brink of something extraordinary. What would it mean to uncover the truth about Luca? What elements of danger lay intertwined with the allure of his world? The questions danced in her mind, igniting a desire for exploration she had never known before. Emma knew then, standing amidst the fading glamour of the gala, this was just the beginning. She would not just brush off this encounter. She would learn more about him, no matter the consequences. This was the first thread of a story she hadn't anticipated, yet she was inexplicably drawn to it. The night held promises of danger and desire, and she was ready to dive in. As Emma stood before Luca, the world around her faded into a blur, leaving just the two of them in a charged moment that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. She was acutely aware of her heart racing, a drumbeat that echoed her internal conflict. Should she confront him about the danger he represented, or should she allow herself to be swept away by his undeniable allure? Just as she opened her mouth to speak, an unexpected commotion erupted from the edge of the gala. "Get away from here," a voice shouted, harsh and threatening. Emma turned her head to see a man advancing through the crowd, his expression twisted with fury. The clinking of glasses and the soft hum of conversation fell into a tense silence as all eyes turned toward the disturbance. The man was tall and muscular, his clothes less refined than those of the gala attendees, marking him as someone from a different world, one that collided violently with Luca's. Luca's demeanor shifted instantaneously. The playful smile vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating glare that sent a chill down Emma's spine. She instinctively took a step back, feeling the crowd's energy shift from fascination to fear. The tension rippled through the air, thickening like smoke. As Lucas stepped forward, "What do you want, Marco?" Luca's voice was low, a warning laced with authority. Emma couldn't help but notice how effortlessly he commanded the room, even in the face of a threat. She felt like a moth drawn to a flame, captivated, yet aware of the danger looming just beyond her reach. "I want you to remember who owns this territory, Luca," Marco spat, a menacing grin spreading across his face. "You think you can just waltz in here, act like you own the place? You're forgetting your place." The words struck Emma like a physical blow. The complexity of the mafia world that Luca inhabited was suddenly laid bare before her. It wasn't just about power and respect. It was about survival in a ruthless game where rivals could turn friends into enemies in mere seconds. She felt her pulse quicken, a mix of fear and fascination coursing through her veins. Luca's life was a high-stakes gamble, and she had unwittingly stepped onto that dangerous board. "Watch your mouth," Luca replied, his voice calm, yet filled with an underlying fire. "You don't want to start something you can't finish." The crowd held its breath, awaiting the next move. Emma could feel the tension in the air, the unspoken rules of their world hanging heavily around them. Marco took a step closer, his eyes narrowing. You think your fancy suits and connections make you untouchable? One way or another, you'll pay for your arrogance. With that, he turned on his heel and left as abruptly as he had arrived, leaving behind a whisper of chaos that slowly started to dissipate among the guests. Emma's heart raced, a cocktail of emotions swirling within her. She had never been so close to real danger before. Yet, despite the fear, there was an undeniable thrill that coursed through her, an attraction to the chaos that Luca represented. It was terrifying and intoxicating all at once. She had glimpsed the darker side of his world, and it left her breathless. When the crowd began to murmur again, Emma felt a wave of shame wash over her. Had she really been so drawn to a man who thrived in such a dangerous environment? As she met Luca's gaze once more, that magnetic pull returned, stronger than before. He was more than just a mafia boss. He was a man who wielded power like a weapon, but also a man capable of vulnerability. Are you all right? Luca's voice softened, the intensity of the confrontation fading as he turned his full attention to her. There was a flicker of concern in his eyes that took Emma by surprise. Me? I'm fine, she said, her voice shaky as she tried to regain her composure. But the words felt hollow even to her ears. She wasn't fine. She was a mix of exhilarated and terrified, grappling with the reality of what it meant to be entangled in his world. What you just witnessed, it's not just a game, Emma, he said, his tone serious. This is my life. And if you're in it, you need to understand the risks. He took a step closer, invading her personal space, his presence overwhelming, yet oddly reassuring. Emma swallowed hard, trying to process the gravity of his words. I'm going to be part of this, she replied, the strength of her voice surprising even herself. I came here for a night of escape, not to get involved in whatever that was. Luca's eyes darkened momentarily before he masked it with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. You might not have a choice, Emma. You've already stepped into this world. The weight of his statement hung in the air, and for the first time, she felt the full implications of her curiosity and attraction to him. I just want a normal life, Emma said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. I don't want to be part of this chaos. But deep down, she felt the tug of interest, a part of her that was drawn to his dangerous charm. Luca regarded her for a long moment, and she could almost see the gears turning in his mind. Normal is a matter of perspective, he replied finally, his voice smooth but edged with a hint of warning. But if you truly wish to walk away, I suggest you do it now. Emma's heart raced, her mind racing with the weight of his words. A part of her wanted to flee, to retreat back to her safe, predictable life. But another part, a part that had been dormant for far too long, yearned to dive deeper into this world, to understand Luca and the man behind the mafia's mask. As she stood there, caught between the allure of the unknown and the safety of her routine, Emma made a decision. She would confront him about what she had seen, about the threats that lingered in the shadows. It was the only way to truly understand the man who had captured her curiosity. Luca, she began, gathering her courage. We need to talk about what just happened. The words hung in the air, charged with promise and uncertainty, setting the stage for their next encounter. In that moment, as they locked eyes, Emma knew that her life would never be the same again. The stakes had been raised, and she could either choose to walk away or step into the chaos that called to her. As the last echoes of Marco's threatening words faded, the air around Emma and Luca felt electric, charged with unspoken tension. She looked up at him, searching for answers in his piercing gaze. Did he truly believe he could navigate this dangerous world without consequences? You know you can't just ignore this, right? Emma's voice was steadier than she felt, her independence surfacing as she confronted him. There are people out there who won't let your arrogance slide. Luca regarded her with a mixture of surprise and admiration. It was rare for anyone to challenge him so openly, especially in a setting drenched in pretense and power plays. What do you know about arrogance? he asked, his tone playful, yet laced with seriousness. "You're standing in the lion's den, Emma. You should be more concerned about your own safety than lecturing me." Emma crossed her arms, unwilling to back down. "And what makes you think I'm just another pawn in your game? I didn't come here to be part of your world. I came here to enjoy myself." The truth was, she was still trying to fathom the depth of his world, the seductive pull that both terrified and thrilled her. Luca's expression softened slightly, and for a fleeting moment, the walls he had built around himself appeared to crack. "You think I want this life?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. "You think I chose to become this man? What do you mean?" Emma's curiosity piqued, her heart racing again. Not from fear, but from the intensity of the moment, the vulnerability he was revealing. Luca glanced away, his jaw tightening, as if he were wrestling with memories better left unmentioned. "I was born into this life. There was never a choice. My father was a ruthless man. He taught me that power is everything, but—" He paused, his eyes darkening as he looked back at her. "What he never taught me was how to be anything other than a predator." Emma felt her heart twist at the weight of his confession. The layers of Luca's persona began to unravel before her, revealing a man shaped by circumstances beyond his control. "That doesn't mean you have to continue his legacy," she replied softly, her voice threading through the tension like a balm. His gaze held hers, a flicker of something unnameable passing between them. "And what if I told you that my legacy is the only thing keeping those I care about safe?" The way he said it made Emma's skin prickle, the implication of his words settling heavily in the air. "Is that why you keep me around?" she shot back, her boldness surprising even herself. "Because you think I'll somehow keep you grounded? Because I'm just a distraction?" Luca moved slightly closer, the magnetic pull between them intensifying. "You're not a distraction. You're—" He paused, weighing his words carefully as if afraid of what they might unleash. "You make this world feel different." Emma's breath caught in her throat. Did he just admit to feeling something for her? It was both exhilarating and terrifying, the reality of her connection with him crystallizing in that moment. "But this world is dangerous, Luca. I'm not sure I can be a part of it." The heat in his gaze intensified, and she could see the struggle within him. "You think I want to drag you into this chaos? I don't want to see you hurt. But I can't walk away from what I am, from who I am," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, laden with emotion. The vulnerability in his tone tugged at Emma's heart. "You're not alone, you know. You have a choice to change things." Luca shook his head. "You don't understand." He stepped back, the distance between them suddenly feeling like an insurmountable chasm. "This life isn't just a choice, it's survival." Silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating, as Emma grappled with the depth of his words. She could feel the gravity of his life pressing down on her, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than the mafia boss facade. "What about your past? Your father? Can't you break free from that?" His gaze hardened, the walls reassembling around him. "You want me to share my past? To lay bare everything that made me? It's not pretty, Emma." "I'm not afraid of ugly truths," she replied defiantly. "I want to understand you." Luca studied her for a long moment, and Emma felt her heart pound with anticipation. "You think you can handle the truth?" "Yes." The words slipped out before she could second-guess herself. Luca took a deep breath, searching her eyes as if looking for a flicker of doubt. "Fine," he said at last, the challenge hanging in the air. "But know this, understanding me means risking everything you've built." Emma's resolve solidified. "I'm willing to take that risk. I don't want to be just a pawn in this game, but I also don't want to run from it. I want to face it with you." The weight of her words hung between them, a promise of something more, a partnership forged in the fires of danger and desire. Luca's eyes softened again, and for a moment, the dangerous veneer of the mafia boss slipped away, revealing the man beneath. "Then let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes," he said, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his lips, charged with a new sense of purpose. Just then, a laughter erupted from across the room, shattering the moment. Emma turned to see a group of people swarming the bar, oblivious to the world around them. The normalcy of it felt surreal, contrasting sharply with the heated conversation she had just shared with Luca. "Come on," he said, breaking her reverie. "Let's get out of here for a while." There was an urgency in his tone that made her heart race. Before she could respond, he grasped her hand, leading her through the throngs of people, the pulse of the music thrumming in her ears. The moment felt electric, her heart pounding in rhythm with every step they took away from the gala, into the unknown. As they slipped into a quiet alcove, away from the chaos, Emma felt a mix of exhilaration and foreboding. She was stepping deeper into his world, a world of shadows and secrets, and the thought sent shivers down her spine. Luca turned to her, his expression serious once more. "Emma, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Don't get lost in this. It's easy to get swept up in the glamour, in the thrill. Just remember the stakes." "I promise." The weight of her vow hung in the air, and Emma knew that this was just the beginning of something much larger than either of them could grasp. As they stood there, the world outside faded away, leaving only the two of them in a space charged with possibility, a fragile balance teetering between danger and desire. The path before them was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Emma was no longer just an observer in Luca's world. She was an active player, and she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The tension in the air was palpable, a dark shroud that enveloped them as Luca's eyes bore into Emma's, filled with unspoken fears and a flicker of vulnerability. Emma could feel her heart pounding in her chest, a fierce drumbeat that echoed the chaos lurking just outside their fragile bubble. It wasn't just Marco's threats that loomed. It was the very real danger that came with being near Luca. Yet, as she searched his gaze, she felt an unexpected resolve building within her. Before she could voice her thoughts, the sudden clatter of a chair being overturned shattered the moment. Emma and Luca turned as a group of men, clad in dark suits, barreled into the room. They exuded an air of menace that sent a chill down Emma's spine. She instinctively stepped closer to Luca, conscious of the protective presence he had become. "Luca, we need to go," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. But Luca's expression hardened, his protective instincts igniting. "Stay behind me," he commanded, the authority in his voice brooking no argument. He stepped forward, positioning himself between Emma and the intruders, the confident mafia boss re-emerging. "What do you want?" His voice was steady, tinged with the steel of a man accustomed to facing threats head-on. The lead man, a burly figure with a scar running down his cheek, smirked, taking a casual step forward. "We're here for a little chat, Luca. You've been getting too comfortable in our territory," he said, eyes flickering to Emma with a predatory glint. "And it seems you've brought a guest." Emma's heart raced. She could feel the tension crackling in the air, a warning that danger was no longer an abstract concept. Luca didn't flinch, his posture unwavering. "You know the rules. This territory belongs to me. Take your threats elsewhere," he replied, his voice low and unyielding. "Is that so?" the man taunted, stepping closer. "You think you can just ignore us? We don't take kindly to your kind of arrogance, Luca." The boss is getting impatient. Emma's mind raced. She had stumbled into Luca's world, a world that was not just about allure and danger, but also about violent rivalries and power struggles. "Luca, we can't stay here," she urged again, fear creeping into her tone. He didn't respond, his focus remaining fixated on the intruders. Emma could see the tension ripple through him as the men closed in, their intentions dark and threatening. The realization struck her. Luca was not just a man of power, he was also a target. And now she was caught in the crossfire. Before she could think twice, Emma made a decision. "I'm not leaving you," she said, the conviction in her voice cutting through the fear. She moved to stand beside him, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "We face this together." Luca's surprise was evident, but there was also something deeper, a flicker of respect and admiration. "This isn't your fight, Emma. You don't know what you're getting into," he warned. But she could see the way his eyes softened, the walls he had built starting to crack under the weight of her resolve. Maybe not, but I'm not going to just stand by and let them threaten you, she replied, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. I won't be a pawn in your game, Luca. I can help. The lead man let out a harsh laugh, breaking the tension in the room. Look at that! The little lady thinks she can help the big bad mafia boss, he sneered. You really don't know what you're dealing with, do you? Luca turned, his gaze fierce and protective. You don't get to talk to her that way, he growled, the heat of his anger evident. Emma felt a rush of warmth at his words, an unspoken bond forming between them in that charged moment. The men hesitated for just a second, and in that instant Luca seized the opportunity. Get her out of here, he ordered, his voice firm. Now. No, Emma exclaimed, panic rising. I won't leave you. Before she could protest further, Luca grabbed her hand, interlocking their fingers. The contact sent a jolt of electricity through her, anchoring her to him. You're safer if you go. Trust me, he said, his voice low, intense, almost pleading. But Emma's resolve only hardened. She wasn't going to run. Not now. I trust you, Luca, but I won't abandon you. We can face them together, whatever it takes. He looked at her, the turmoil in his eyes revealing a depth of emotion she hadn't seen before. Emma, you don't understand. His voice trailed off, and she could see the weight of his world pressing down on him. I understand more than you think, she insisted. I know there are risks, but I'm choosing to be here with you. You don't have to face this alone. Her words seemed to resonate with him, stirring something deep within. Luca's expression shifted as he contemplated her unwavering commitment. If you're going to stay, then we do this my way, he said, his voice steely once more, but with a hint of something softer beneath the surface. Stay close. As the rival gang members advanced, Emma could feel her heart racing, but she stood her ground, side by side with Luca. Their fingers remained entwined, a silent promise of solidarity in the face of danger. She could see the tension in his jaw, the way he was bracing for a confrontation. But she felt something shift between them, an unspoken agreement that they would protect each other, no matter the cost. The burly man took another step forward, clearly unimpressed by their defiance. You really think you can stand against us? He taunted, his eyes narrowing. You're making a mistake. Luca's grip on Emma tightened. No, you're the ones making a mistake, he replied, his voice steady and resolute. You've underestimated what I'm willing to do to protect what's mine. The words hung in the air like a challenge, and Emma could sense the shift in the dynamics. She was no longer just an observer. She was part of this world, part of the fight. The realization sent a thrill through her, igniting a fire within. As the tension reached its peak, Emma realized that whatever happened next would change the course of their lives forever. In that moment, she understood the gravity of her decision to stand by Luca's side, and as their eyes locked, she knew they were united against the chaos that threatened to engulf them both. The tension in the room escalated as Luca's grip tightened around Emma's hand, a silent promise that he wouldn't let anything happen to her. The men before them, confident in their intimidation, exchanged glances that spoke volumes. Emma's heart raced, not merely from fear, but from the realization that she was no longer an outsider looking in. She was part of this dangerous world, bound by her choice to stand with Luca. What's it going to be, Luca? The lead man taunted, his voice dripping with disdain. You think you can just refuse to play by the rules? The boss doesn't appreciate your defiance. Luca's jaw clenched, his muscles coiling like a tightly wound spring. I'm not afraid of your boss, he replied, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of anger. You've stepped into my territory, and that's a mistake you'll regret. Emma felt a surge of adrenaline at his words. Luca wasn't just the mafia boss. He was a man who was willing to defend what was his. Yet, as the lead man stepped closer, she couldn't shake off the gnawing fear in her gut. She had always been the sensible one, avoiding dangerous situations, but now she was right in the eye of the storm. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be, the man sneered, gesturing to his companions to flank Luca. Just hand over the girl, and we'll forget this little encounter. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. The unspoken threat hung heavy in the air, and she realized the extent of the danger they were in. No, she said, surprising herself with the strength of her voice. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The laughter from the men echoed in the room, a chilling reminder of the power dynamics at play. But Emma stood her ground, aware that her presence there was as critical as Luca's. Luca turned to her, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. "Emma," he started, but she cut him off. "I'm not a pawn in your game, Luca," she insisted, feeling the heat of their collective gaze. "I've made my choice. I'm with you." Her declaration was more than just a stand against the men before them. It was a commitment to Luca, to the bond that had formed between them in the face of danger. The lead man's expression shifted from amusement to irritation. "You really think you can protect her, Luca? You're in over your head." He gestured to his men, who began to close in. Suddenly, a voice boomed from the entrance, halting them in their tracks. "Enough." A tall figure, broad-shouldered and imposing, stepped into the room. It was Marco, flanked by a couple of his own men. Relief washed over Emma, but it was quickly overshadowed by dread. Marco's presence brought a new layer of complexity to the confrontation. "Marco," Luca growled, stepping slightly in front of Emma, his body a shield against the brewing storm. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see what all the fuss was about." "You seem to be making quite the scene, Luca," Marco replied, his tone mocking. His eyes flickered to Emma, assessing her before narrowing slightly. "And you've brought a guest." Emma felt a wave of anxiety. Marco was unpredictable. She had seen that side of him before. What was he planning? "You're outnumbered," Marco continued, a smirk playing on his lips. "And you're making a big mistake by not backing down. I can't protect you if you're intent on being reckless." Luca's eyes darkened with fury. "I don't need your protection, Marco," he said, his voice low and ominous. "And I won't let you use her as leverage against me." "Leverage?" Marco chuckled, but the humor in his voice didn't reach his eyes. "I'm not the enemy here. You are, Luca. You think you can just ignore the rules? This is a game you can't win." As tensions flared, Emma felt the weight of the situation bearing down on her. She looked between the men, realizing that this was more than just a confrontation. It was a political chess game, where every move could mean life or death. "Luca," she whispered, urgency lacing her words. "What's going on? Who can we trust?" Her heart raced as the gravity of their situation became painfully clear. Betrayal lurked not just in the shadows, but possibly within Luca's own ranks. Luca met her gaze, his brow furrowing as if he were weighing his options. "There's more at play here than you realize, Emma," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I could keep you safe from this world, but it looks like I've underestimated the danger." Before Emma could respond, Marco stepped closer, a predatory glint in his eyes. "You really think you've got this under control, don't you, Luca? But you're a fool if you think you can protect her from everything, especially when the real threat is right beside you." Luca's expression hardened, and he seemed to wrestle with the implications of Marco's words. Emma's heart sank, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fit together in a way that made her uneasy. Was Marco suggesting that there was a traitor among Luca's own men? The weight of betrayal hung heavy in the air, and Emma felt a shiver run down her spine. This was no longer just about her feelings for Luca. It was about survival. "Whatever games you're playing, Marco, I won't let you use Emma against me," Luca declared, his tone fierce and unwavering. "I'll protect her at all costs." But Emma felt the rift forming between them, a crack in their alliance that threatened to widen into an abyss. Doubt crept in as she processed Luca's words, questioning whether she could truly trust him in this dangerous game. As the tension peaked, Emma realized the fight wasn't over. It had just begun. With a sudden surge of determination, she stepped forward, breaking the distance between them. "Luca, we need to figure this out together," she urged, her voice steady. "We can't let them tear us apart." Luca looked at her, the storm of emotions swirling in his gaze. "You're right, but we need to find out who we can trust first. And I have a feeling it's not just Marco we need to worry about." The realization settled in. The battle was not just against the men in the room, but against the unseen threats lurking in the shadows. Emma's heart raced, a mix of fear and resolve, knowing that their trust would be tested like never before. The night was far from over, and as the stakes rose, so did their commitment to each other. But would it be enough to outmaneuver the dangers ahead? The answer remained a fragile whisper in the dark, as they prepared to face whatever was to come. The room was heavy with tension as Marco's presence shifted the dynamics entirely. Emma felt her heart race, aware that the stakes had just escalated. Luca's protective stance was a clear indication of the impending confrontation, but Marco's arrival brought a new kind of uncertainty. "Luca, we need to talk," Marco said, his tone deceptively calm. Emma could sense the undercurrent of menace beneath his words, like a predator toying with its prey. Luca didn't budge, his eyes locked onto Marco's, filled with defiance. "Talk? You think this is the time for your games?" Luca shot back, his voice low and cold. Emma could feel the heat radiating from him, an energy that was both intimidating and exhilarating. She stepped slightly to the side, trying to gauge Marco's reaction, keenly aware that the arrangement of power was changing rapidly in this standoff. "You're not thinking straight," Marco said, a smirk playing on his lips. "You're isolated, Luca. It's just you against everyone else now." His gaze shifted toward Emma, and she felt exposed under his scrutiny. "And what's she doing here? You think she can save you?" "Emma's not the one in danger," Luca replied, his grip on her hand tightening. "You are." The assertion hung in the air, filled with the weight of unresolved tension. Emma's heart fluttered at the fierce protectiveness in his voice, a stark contrast to the cold atmosphere enveloping them. Before Emma could respond, the lead man, emboldened by the shift in momentum, stepped forward again. "Enough of this chit-chat. We came for a reason." He glanced back at Marco, his confidence growing. "I think it's time you realize how outmatched you are." Emma searched Luca's eyes, seeking reassurance. She saw the storm brewing within him, a mixture of anger and determination. "We're not going to back down," she declared, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. Luca's gaze softened at her words, and for a fleeting moment, she could see the vulnerability beneath his hard exterior. "Emma, you need to stay behind me," he said, his tone shifting to a more protective note. The intensity of the moment was palpable, and Emma could feel the weight of their choices pressing down on them. She refused to be the damsel in distress, not anymore. Marco's laughter broke through the tension, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. "You think that standing together will save you? You're both fools." His voice dripped with disdain, eyes glinting with malice. "The boss won't tolerate defiance, and neither will I." With a sudden movement, Marco reached into his jacket, producing a sleek device that Emma recognized immediately. "You're not the only one who plays dirty," he said, pressing a button. The lights flickered, and the room was temporarily cast into darkness. Panic shot through Emma as she instinctively clutched Luca's arm. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice a steady anchor in the chaos. The darkness deepened, creating an all-consuming void where the only sounds were the heavy breaths and the rapid beating of her heart. As the lights returned, Emma could make out the silhouette of Marco standing confidently, flanked by the other men who had started to encircle them. "You're cornered now," Marco said, his voice cool and collected. "You should have listened, Luca. This is the end of your little rebellion." Before any of them could react, a loud crash erupted at the back of the room, drawing everyone's attention. A figure burst through the door, a familiar face that brought a surge of hope and confusion. It was Sarah, Emma's best friend, her face flushed with urgency. "Emma, Luca, get out of here," she shouted, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Sarah?" Emma exclaimed, unable to comprehend how her friend had managed to find them. Luca's eyes darted to the door, his instincts kicking in. "What are you doing here?" he growled, his protective nature flaring once more. "I followed you." "I couldn't just leave you." Sarah's voice trembled, and in that moment, Emma realized the true depth of their connection. The stakes had raised significantly, and the world they were entangled in was threatening to swallow them whole. "Go," Luca commanded, his expression fierce. "You need to get out now." But Emma felt an unyielding resolve. She wasn't going to abandon him. "No, I'm staying. We can't let them win," she declared, her voice steady and unwavering. In that charged moment, Marco's expression shifted from amusement to alarm. He hadn't anticipated this turn of events. "You think you can just walk away from this?" he barked, the anger boiling beneath the surface. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "We know exactly who we're dealing with," Emma shot back, her voice emboldened by the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "You're the one who's outnumbered now, Marco." The lead man exchanged a glance with Marco, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Luca's determination surged, fed by Emma's strength. "We're not just going to play by your rules anymore," he said, stepping forward with an authority that made even Marco hesitate. "You've underestimated us for the last time." With a sudden burst of courage, Emma reached for Luca's arm, intertwining her fingers with his. "We're together in this," she affirmed, feeling the power of their connection radiate between them. It was no longer about simply surviving. It was about fighting back. In that moment, a collective understanding settled over the room. They were not just individuals caught in a dangerous game. They were allies, bound by choice and defiance. Emma could see the wheels turning in Marco's mind, the realization that his plan was unraveling. With a swift movement, Luca pulled Emma closer, ready to face whatever came next. "If you think you can intimidate us, you're sorely mistaken," he said, his voice resonating with an iron will. Marco's smirk faltered, and Emma sensed the shift in power. "Let's end this now. I'm done playing games," Marco spat, his voice a low growl. The threat hung heavily in the air, yet Emma felt a surge of confidence. They had come too far to back down now. As the confrontation reached its climax, Emma prepared for the fight of their lives. She had no idea how this would end, but she knew one thing. Together, they would face whatever came next. The bond they had forged in the heat of conflict was unbreakable, an alliance that could withstand the storm. "Let's go," Luca said, determination etched across his features. With Emma by his side, they were ready to fight back against the darkness that threatened to consume them. The chaos that erupted in the room became a cacophony of shouts and movement. But amidst it all, Emma's mind raced with newfound clarity. Sarah's unexpected arrival had shifted the tide, igniting a spark of hope that had flickered dimly in her heart. Luca's protective grip on her hand was a reminder that they were no longer alone in this fight. The presence of her friend brought a sense of unity, a bond forged in the heat of adversity. "Sarah, how did you find us?" Emma shouted over the din, her voice laced with both concern and relief. The sight of her best friend standing defiantly in the doorway, ready to confront the danger, filled her with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "I followed the trail of trouble," Sarah replied, her breath quickened but her resolve unwavering. "I knew something was off when you didn't come home. I couldn't just sit back and do nothing." Her eyes darted to Marco and the men surrounding them, a flicker of fear crossing her face. "We need to get out of here, now." Luca's gaze shifted between Emma and Sarah, weighing their options. "We can't just run," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil. "We need to stand our ground." His expression hardened as he faced Marco, who was still smirking, clearly enjoying the chaos he had orchestrated. "Stand your ground?" Marco scoffed, his confidence unshaken. "You really think you can take on all of us? This is not a game, Luca. You're outnumbered." Emma felt the tension thicken in the air, but she refused to let fear dictate their fate. "We're not just going to let you push us around," she asserted, surprising herself with the fierceness of her words. "We know what you're capable of, and we're not afraid anymore." Luca's eyes met hers, a flicker of pride igniting within him. "That's right," he said, stepping closer to her, their hands still intertwined. "We're done being pushed into corners." Marco's expression shifted slightly, the smirk faltering as he assessed the defiance emanating from them. "You think you can defy me? You really have no idea what you're up against." Before he could continue, a noise erupted from the back of the room, an explosion of sound that drew everyone's gaze. A large, imposing figure emerged from the shadows, a man Emma recognized instantly. Giovanni, Luca's mentor and a powerful figure in the mafia world. His presence commanded attention, and the atmosphere shifted palpably as he stepped forward, his eyes narrowed on Marco. Enough! Giovanni's voice boomed, cutting through the tension like a knife. You've overstepped your bounds, Marco. This isn't your territory to toy with. The surprise on Marco's face was evident, and for the first time, he seemed uncertain. Giovanni, this doesn't concern you, he said, though the confidence in his tone had waned. Oh, but it does, Giovanni replied, his gaze piercing. Luca is under my protection, and you've just made a grave mistake. Emma watched as the dynamics shifted once more, the balance of power tilting in their favor. Giovanni was a force to be reckoned with, and with him at their side, they had a chance. She felt Luca's grip tighten around her hand, a silent promise that they were in this together. Let's finish this, Luca said, his voice firm. We're not backing down. Marco, realizing he was cornered, exchanged glances with his men, the bravado in his stance faltering. You think you can intimidate me with your little family reunion? He spat, but the bravado was laced with desperation. Giovanni stepped closer, his presence imposing. I'm not here to intimidate. I'm here to end this. He turned to Emma and Luca, his expression softening slightly. Are you both ready to take this fight back to him? Emma nodded, her heart racing, more than ever. Luca squeezed her hand, a surge of determination coursing through them both. Together. As the tension in the room reached its peak, Marco's men exchanged uncertain glances. They could sense the shift, the realization that they were no longer the hunters, but the hunted. Get them, Marco shouted, trying to rally his men, but the hesitance was palpable. In that moment, Luca and Emma sprang into action, moving as one. They navigated through the chaos, using the advantage of surprise. Giovanni engaged Marco directly, their confrontation a clash of titans, while Emma and Luca worked together to fend off the other men, relying on their instincts and the trust they had built between them. With every move, Emma felt the adrenaline surge through her veins, reminding her of the strength she had discovered within herself. Their partnership, built on vulnerability and courage, was their greatest weapon. As the confrontation unfolded, Emma caught glimpses of hope, of a future where they could reclaim their lives from the shadows of the mafia. They fought not just for survival, but for the life they envisioned together, free from the chains that had bound them. Finally, with a decisive blow, Giovanni subdued Marco, the power dynamic shifting completely. This ends now, he declared, his voice resonating with authority. As the dust settled, Emma and Luca stood side by side, heartbeats synchronizing in a rhythm of newfound hope. They had faced the darkness together, and now, standing in the light of their victory, they could finally breathe. What's next for us? Emma asked, her voice steady but filled with anticipation. Luca turned to her, a smile breaking through the tension. We build a life away from this, together. No more shadows, just us. Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her, the weight of the past lifting. I want that, she said, her heart swelling with possibility. As they stepped forward, hand in hand, they left the chaos behind, stepping into a future bright with promise. The shadows of the mafia would always linger, but together they would carve out a new path, one filled with love, trust, and the unwavering strength they had discovered in one another. With a final glance back at the remnants of the fight, Emma felt a sense of closure wash over her. They had faced their fears and emerged victorious. The journey ahead would not be easy, but it was theirs to navigate, and that was enough. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear.